up your water bottle or make yourself a hot cup of tea like I've done, or find a little blanket and wrap it around you to listen to Ella talk. I encourage you to do so. I told Ella I want this to be time for everyone to just take a breather and take a moment. This is time for you. You've got 45 minutes. If you need to eat your lunch, eat your lunch. If you need to run to the restroom really quick, go do that. Take care of yourself, and we'll be here when you're ready. I'm worried my tea might be too hot. I'm worried I'm going to burn my mouth. It's kind of burning my hand through the mug. Okay. Oh no, my tea is just right. We're good.
Oh,
We are good and ready to roll now.
ready to go.
Okay, it is right at 12, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and let me get all my other little screens ready to go here. Okay, are you ready, Ella?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to another health talk. Today we're sitting down with Ella, and I'm so excited for this conversation. And I think a lot of people on this call are also very excited. We had a lot of engagement with this health talk and with this topic. And before everyone hopped on, I just told Ella that we had the opportunity or the option for people to submit questions if they had questions prior to the health talk. And someone said that they didn't have a question, but they were just excited to hear what Ella has to say. She is wonderful. So we're all excited to hear from you. I feel like you're like a little celebrity, and we're all
Yeah.
waiting to hear what you have to say. But on a real note, this is a very serious topic. Ella, you and I have talked previously that specifically in healthcare and in the nonprofit world, stress is high and burnout is frequent. And I think we've all been impacted by this, that whether or not we're in a clinical role or not in a clinical role in healthcare. And this is an important conversation to have. And some of us may know some of this information, but it's always a good reminder to come back and try to prioritize some tactics and self-care techniques to combat burnout and stress.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really helpful for me as I was preparing for this because there was a lot of things that I may have known at one time, but I either don't do or had forgotten. And I think it's a pertinent topic because if you work in this field or if you have people you love or children, if you have relationships of any sort, there is stress in those relationships.
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
good to know how to regulate that because
Yeah.
it does help our overall sense of well-being. Yeah.
Yeah. And prior to this health talk, I sent you some of my Maddie thoughts or things that I wanted to discuss. And you probably thought I was crazy because I feel like I went down this little rabbit hole of which I know we're going to get into all of this, but I really feel like we live in such a fast-paced world that stress is just normalized, like
Yeah.
I don't know. We're living in a time where we're surrounded by information. We've got social media. We've got the internet literally at our fingertips. Some of us have smartwatches. Everything's on your watch. You're constantly getting notifications.
Mhm.
Um, email, we can't disengage from work if you've got your email. Um, it just seems really hard to unplug in this day and time. Um, I don't know. So we have a lot to discuss. So it's just a weird time that we're in. Anyway,
Yeah.
when I sent you all my little notes, you were probably like, what in the world? What rabbit hole is she getting down into? But I do feel like the time that we're living in, we just always have this pressure to be on and to be going all the time. And it's just very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a it's a unique time that we live in with the technology that we have.
Yes. Okay, so I think the best thing to start with is one, I want you to briefly introduce yourself. Share with me how long you've been practicing, how long have you been in Avery County, um, and then we can jump into what stress is versus what burnout is, because I think it's good to kind of differentiate the two and talk about those, and then we can kind of roll into our conversation. One note for everyone listening, Ella and I cannot see you. We cannot hear you. So if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. You are welcome to directly chat me and I will I will respect your privacy and you can ask any kind of questions to me or to Ella and we'll have fun today and time to connect and talk through this topic. But Ella, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. I'm a native of Avery County, so I have been here
You
since I was born. Yeah. I
didn't know
started,
that.
yeah, and I'm really glad to be in the community where I grew up. That's a blessing. I started nursing. I graduated from nursing school in 1996. I worked at the old Banner Elk Hospital for 2 years. Went back and did my master's at UNC Chapel Hill. Um, and then I did family practice. I've been a nurse practitioner since 2000 and worked at the Baker Center with Dr. Charles Baker, worked with him for like 15 years in family practice. And I went back to school and got my certification in psychiatric mental health about 8 years ago. So I've been working in behavioral health since then.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's been a great career. I've got to meet a lot of great people. And I really like that, just seeing being able to follow people. I'm seeing patients now that I saw when they were children, and I'm seeing grandchildren of patients I used to see, and I like that. That's special for me to be able to follow people through their
Isn't
lives.
it? That's
Yeah,
such a beautiful thing.
yeah.
And you have a twin that also works for the healthcare
I
system?
do. I do. I have a twin sister, Eva. She's older for the record. She's I hear
Yeah,
somebody laughing in
Eva.
the other room. Yeah, she's 3 minutes older. And a funny note, my mom did not know she was having twins, so that was
Oh,
that was a surprise.
this is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. But that's a
This-
blessing too. I enjoy working with my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. And we have to give a shout out to Eva because Eva helped me to convince Ella to do this health talk. Yes.
Yes.
Shout out to you, Eva. We appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah. That may be a good segue into what is stress. Uh,
Yes.
when you talk about stress, that's a good example. Not all stress is bad stress. I kind of think of stress as a continuum, and on the far end of stress is good stress, like when someone asks you to prepare for a talk. Then stress can motivate you, and stress can help you achieve goals. And when you achieve those goals, that good stress gives you a sense of fulfillment and purpose. So I think
Mhm.
that's important to remember too, that not all stress is bad stress. If I
Yeah.
like to think of this like a rocket ship. And when you are first blasting off from the launch pad and your rocket ship is full of fuel, you have direction, you have motivation, you have a goal, and your rocket ship is blasting through the atmosphere. And that's good stress. You have a purpose. But then
Mhm.
when you move to the center of the stress continuum, that's where we get into distress. So that's bad stress. That's stress when you feel like the demand on you is greater than your perceived resources. And this is when you start to feel maybe helpless, you're starting to feel drained, you're starting to feel like a loss of control. And if you think about the rocket ship again, so your rocket ship is still headed in a direction, but now that gravitational force is starting to put more pressure on your rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the bolts and the nuts are starting to become a little bit loose and things are starting to rattle. You're still in motion, but it's starting to show more pressure. And then
Mhm.
if you move to the far end of the stress continuum, you get into burnout. And this is
Yeah.
when your rocket ship has no more fuel. there is nothing left in the tank. There's no purpose anymore. You feel emotionally exhausted. You may feel a sense of cynicism. There's no, what am I doing here? There's nothing good that comes from my work. And there's a persistent sense of negativity about yourself or your job or other people you work at. But
Yeah.
if you think again about your rocket ship, there's no motion, there's no direction. The rocket ship is empty. There's no fuel left.
Yeah. And that can be, that just sounds very heavy. Is there a space between the middle of the continuum that you were describing and burnout? Is there kind of an in between? Um, is that kind of middle ground between like the what you were describing of your rocket is doing great, you're doing good, you have good stress, you've got the medium middle of the road, and then you've got burnout. Where in that continuum do we need to start spotting burnout? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where do we start seeing the symptoms before our rocket is just dipped down and we're like headed down to the ground?
Yeah. I think the symptoms between distress and burnout, they can be subtle and gradual, particularly in people who are high performers, because sometimes achievement and productivity can hide symptoms that you are too stressed.
Yeah.
And when you continue to push yourself past the point of exhaustion and you ignore those cues that, hey, something's wrong, I think that's when you are going to lead yourself to burnout. I think there
Yeah.
is a point where you can recognize things, but sometimes it takes a step back. If you are emotionally not doing well, you're physically having symptoms to take inventory and maybe something is wrong here that I need to pay attention to.
Yeah. That was, we're going to jump around a little bit, but that was one of the questions I had sent to you about high achievers. Are they at a higher risk for burnout? Um, I think especially in healthcare and in the nonprofit space, a lot of us can tie our identities um, to our work, because which we were just talking about this a little bit before everyone hopped on the call, but in healthcare and in nonprofit, we are constantly giving to others.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we can tie ourselves to that and tie our identities to that mission. And so that was one of the questions I had for you of do you think people tie their self-worth with how much they can handle or how much they can get done? And then that rolls into do high achievers, are they more susceptible to burnout and their rocket crashing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think particularly in our goal oriented society, it's very easy for people to tie their self-esteem to their performance. And I think when you set high goals for yourself, but when your standard is perfectionism, because nobody is perfect all the time, then you have unrealistic standards. And when you tie your self-esteem to that, then it's easy to fail. And that's just it's not appropriate because you really need to have realistic expectations for yourself in your job and in your personal life too.
Hmm. For those listening and they relate to this and they're thinking, yeah, I'm guilty of that. I set high expectations. Um, what would you recommend to them?
I I don't think it's a bad thing to set high expectations for yourself because I mean everyone needs goals, but I think they need to be realistic. Um,
Yeah.
that's one thing we talk on the inpatient unit when people come to the psychiatric hospital. We always sit down with people and we say, what are going to be your goals for this hospitalization? But there's an acronym we use. The acronym is SMART. Goals you set for yourself need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be achievable, they need to be relevant to you, and they need to have a time bound limit on them. And I think that's a good way to set goals for yourself that aren't so unachievable and unrealistic that you'll never meet them all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I've gotten us like totally off track
No,
here.
we're good.
But um one of the things I jotted down is it possible that people sometimes don't even realize how burnt out they are because it just feels like everyday life? Going back to, um, it just feels like there's constant expectations, pressure to always be on. Um, Again, ties into technology today. It's hard to step away from work, especially being in healthcare. Can you talk to us what some more symptoms of burnout and what that looks like day to day? Is
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
possible to experience it and not know it?
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute. We'll back up and talk about symptoms of stress,
Okay.
because again, that comes before true burnout. But there can be physical symptoms of stress. The more common ones that we see in behavioral health are problems like headaches, muscle tension, myalgias, which are muscle aches and pains, a lot of GI issues, because the gut is the second brain. So a lot of stomach problems when people are very stressed. It can affect your sex drive. Um, Sexual dysfunction is a very common symptom of stress. It can weaken your immune system, so you're more at risk for chronic infections. And then you can start to have emotional symptoms, things like anxiety, depression, irritability. Disrupted sleep is very common, concentration issues. So that's kind of the stress part of things. But then when the biggest difference between stress and burnout is when these stressors are unrelenting and you don't get a break in between. When these symptoms get worse and it impairs your ability to function, that is burnout. So again, you're overwhelmingly exhausted both physically and mentally. um, you feel a sense of apathy and dissatisfaction in your personal life, in your work life, mood changes, appetite changes, sleep changes, and then these physical issues can get worse as well.
Yeah. Um, I was just listening to, um, do you know who Mel Robbins is?
Yeah,
Yes. And for those of you listening, Mel Robbins, you probably know her too. I feel like her face is everywhere, but she wrote the book Let Them Theory, which has blown up over the years. But she also has a podcast, and on her latest episode was with a doctor named Dr. Brooke Harris, and they were talking about how stress causes, like you had mentioned, causes inflammation, which increases your and infects your immune system, so increases your risk of getting sick. Um, and then how talking about with burnout, how it's kind of the like persistent stress and chronically happening. Um, so that's just really interesting that stress can do that to us, which
yeah,
then can lead to diseases like heart disease or I don't know what else, but it's just interesting. It's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's really important to, if you consider the overall picture of well-being, it's not just my blood pressure is this number and my cholesterol levels are this number, my sugar's okay. But there are so many parts to wellness, but your physical definitely, but also your mental health, but your spiritual health as well. I think when you attend all of those things, it can overall help your whole body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit. It's
Hmm.
important to pay attention to the health of all those.
Yeah. Um, so I feel like you've just answered this, but it was on my little question sheet here.
Okay.
So, when you're talking about we have some good stress shooting us up as like a rocket into the sky and obtaining our goals and things, we also know that stress is also important for our reactions to different situations. So like if a snake slithered out in front of me right now, that oh my gosh, a snake, that is needed, that reaction is needed so I can turn around and run away from the snake. And so we recognize that stress is important. And I'm assuming back in the day, back in caveman days or something, if a crazy creature was running after you, you needed that stress to be able to run fast and solve situations, right? But now we're in a different time and our bodies are still responding to things that are happening with that crazy stress response. Um, and we're at the point in our lives, maybe we do need to fight or flight, but maybe day to day working, we don't need that fight or flight response, but that reaction is still happening. So, what is happening in our bodies when when that stress is just there all the time? Because we're not actually fighting or flighting. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think that's a good analogy. You need that momentary burst of adrenaline in a fight or flight situation if you're running from the bear and you got to get away or you might be eaten. But in today's world, those perceived threats could potentially never turn off. And so
Right.
our alarm systems are always on. They're
Yes.
on during the day, they're on at night. We don't
Yes.
sleep well. So
Yes.
we have got to find a way and take control so we can get back the ability to turn our own alarm systems off. And there is a way to do that.
Let's get into it.
It's not
Let's just
hopeless.
hop around. And I know that
Okay.
was like a little bit off script, but let's do it. And you said that way better than I did. I did like my caveman analogy though.
I like your caveman.
Um, so tell us, what do we do? How do we turn that off? Because it just feels like we're always on all the
Mhm.
time.
And
How
you
do we
could
get
be.
back?
I think that's one of the issues with technology. I mean, the line between work and life is very blurred. And
Mhm.
if you don't set some boundaries into your work life and the rest of your life, I mean, you could potentially be available 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And
Uh,
and I feel like again in healthcare and in a nonprofit space, that's very common. Um, in nonprofit worlds, we all wear very many hats. So it sometimes feels like you have to be on, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I I think I also think there's a expectation in this world that it's the way I had to do it, so it's the way you got to do it, and you just got to suck it up. And I know you're stressed, but that's just the nature of it. And I think that's changing. I know when I graduated nursing school, that was just the expectation. You work, you come in on your days off, you work extra, you don't complain because that's the way it's always done. But I think now that we are realizing how valuable healthcare workers are and how much we need them, it's really important to attend to their health so we keep them. There's
Yeah.
just not that many more in the pipeline. So it's worth
Yeah.
the time for companies to invest in the mental health of people to keep the good workers than just letting them burn out and expecting to find more because there's really not that more. We need
No.
everybody. Yeah, and we need
Yeah.
everybody to be at their best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. That was
Yeah.
one of the questions that was submitted. One of the questions was ways to encourage leadership to prioritize staff well-being while being cognizant of a budget.
Mhm.
Did you have anything to share to that?
Yes, and I actually I have some things that are free.
Oh,
Which,
we
so
love
that's
it.
good. Yeah.
Great.
One is open communication, feeling that you as an employee are able to voice and share your ideas with administration.
Mhm.
Delegating power, when you empower people to make decisions in the workplace, you give them back a sense of control so they're not helpless and powerless, but it improves people's engagement. uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
Respecting the work-life balance. So when
Yeah.
people are off, you don't call them to come in, and you you really make that a priority for people. Building a culture of trust, respect, and autonomy where you value your employees and employees are involved in decision making. But I think UNC has made an attempt to do that with our system goals,
Mhm.
in the Carolina Care goals, and it's embracing the whole of the system instead of feeling like you're just caught up in the current and you're just swept along, but that you actually have a voice and a place here. And I think that's
Yeah.
really important to prevent burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Those are all great tips for that. Okay, sorry, I wanted to jump to that since we were talking about the environment too. But okay, let's go back to we just talked about that it's can be hard to sometimes turn off that stress response. So what can we do to turn off that stress response when our bodies think we're having to fight the bear, but in reality we're not fighting the
It's so
bear?
bad. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about healthy boundaries.
Okay.
So,
Healthy boundaries. This is a
yeah.
hard thing, Ella.
I know it's hard, but you got to make them, Maddie. So a healthy boundary defines what is appropriate behavior in our relationships, but it also sets an expectation of you in this relationship and I in this relationship. And boundaries are very important. They are absolutely necessary for self-care, because when you always put other people's needs and wants before your own, it can lead to resentment, and then that can lead to emotional burnout. There's a
Yeah.
couple of things you have to do to establish a healthy boundary. It requires assertiveness, but not aggressiveness, but you have to be able to express your feelings clearly and respectfully to someone else. It requires clear communication with another person, um, specifically setting boundaries at work, because I think that's where it's really hard. But this also applies to your personal relationships. It's very important to assess your personal boundaries first, because if you don't know where your boundaries are, it's very easy for someone to cross them, which again is just going to lead to dissatisfaction and resentment. But the
Yeah.
way you do that is it's determined by your own values and your priorities. You need to communicate clearly and directly with people. It's an important thing to keep professional relationships professional. And it doesn't mean you can't be friendly with people, but there is a time in the work environment where that is a good boundary to have. And
Yeah.
especially with providers and patients, keeping those boundaries very clear is very important for my health and for your health as well.
Hmm.
Um, Delegating work when it is appropriate to do so. There is nothing wrong with taking things off your plate so you can do your work successfully, but give other people a sense of responsibility, and learning to say no, which I'm not great at either. And it's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's necessary, because
Yeah.
it's better to tell somebody you can't do it than say you will and then you don't do it. You
Or
just
don't do it well.
or you don't do it well.
Yeah.
Taking time off. Everybody needs a break. You need a day to disengage. You need to do something. You can't be the job 24/7.
Mhm.
You can't. So you need something else to do, and taking that time off to recharge your batteries is essential. Um, and then creating a clear structure for work time. When you are at work, you are at work. And when you are at home, you are not at work. So you don't answer the phone. You don't check your team's messages. You turn off your notifications. So you set that clear boundary.
Those are all things that we need to be doing, but there some of them are hard. It's hard
They
to
are
do
hard.
these things.
Yep.
And when you and I have talked before, I have shared with you that I've noticed within myself, well, I think a lot of people deal with this. It is hard to say no to things. And I'm so guilty of feeling completely stressed and overwhelmed, but then continuing to add to my plate. And sometimes I take a step back and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And sometimes I've wondered, is that my way of controlling the situation, like adding things onto my plate gives me a sense of control when things feel out of control. Um, I don't know. I know personally that's something I struggle with. Everyone on here is probably like, what in the world? But it's hard sometimes. It's hard to set boundaries. It's hard to disconnect. I do think iPhones today make things a little bit easier. I know you can put different modes on your phone, like the under the do not disturb section on your phone. I've noticed before, I have not done it, but I have seen this, that there are like different things like do not disturb, or like if you're at home, you can check the personal thing. So I don't know. I think that can be helpful. So then you're not having to just remove email from your phone, but when you're home, you can put the little I'm at home thing on. I'm not sure what you call those, but the do
Yeah,
not disturb
yeah,
categories. So that's nice to have that.
yeah. There, I'll tell you this, there was, when I was looking up things for this talk, there was a concept that I ran across that you just touched on, and it's over responsibility. People that take on too many things. There's a couple of things under that. One are high achievers. So these are people who are always striving for perfection, and they just set unrealistic standards for themselves, but they just take on so much responsibility thinking they can do it all. And then you have
Yeah.
another type of person, the highly conscientious person. They find it really difficult to say no, even if it sacrifices their own personal time and their well being. And then you have a third type of person, the highly empathetic person. They feel compelled to take on other people's problems and needs, even when those, even when you neglect your own needs in the process.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you're talking about. But that can again lead to too much on your plate.
Yeah. And can also in the healthcare world can lead to compassion fatigue. We haven't said those words yet. What exactly is compassion fatigue?
Burnout. Yeah,
Burnout? Yeah.
yeah. Just emotional exhaustion. You don't have. And I think we've all seen this in the profession that we work at. We've probably been there. I think I have, and I've certainly worked with people who I feel like are they have a no bandwidth anymore for compassion for others. And you know, I think we all in this field we all entered it because we really do want to help people. And if you find yourself you just don't feel like you have the compassion for people anymore. I think if you go back to maybe the first days that you started in this line of work, you can get back to that point because I imagine everybody on here started with the right motivation. But if you feel like I just don't have it in me anymore, you did at one point and it's there. It may be very small, but I think that's a good thing to remember too. It wasn't always gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Because normally that's also what got a lot of people into this field, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's hard though. It's hard to witness the suffering of others. It's hard to care for people who don't seem to care for themselves.
mhm,
And I think it's important that you have to focus on the things that you can control and not on, and you cannot focus on the things that you cannot, and you cannot control other people, and you
yeah,
cannot control other people's decisions as bad as they may seem to you.
yeah,
But I think when you start to realize that and you start to focus on that, it can help some with the compassion fatigue.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. I feel like Mel Robbins, she talks a lot about that in the let them theory of you can't control other people and what they do and how they think. Um, so I know we have a lot of healthcare people on this call. What is something simple that someone can do in the middle of a stressful day? Is there a quick breathing exercise or a quick reset? Is there something that people can realistically do right now in the moment between patients or meetings or anything like that?
There's a couple of things we teach these a lot on the inpatient unit, but the power of breathing, deep breathing. There's a technique that we teach. It's called box breathing. So if you imagine that you are drawing a box in the air, you take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. So you're drawing one edge of the box, you exhale for 4 seconds, you inhale for 4 seconds, and you exhale. So you keep drawing that box. But that is a very quick and powerful technique, because when we get anxious and stressed, our breathing automatically gets more shallow and more rapid. So when you start to deep breathe and concentrate on your breathing, you're actually tapping into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for slowing down and regulating all of your systems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's also another technique that we teach is called grounding. And grounding is focusing you in on the here and now. So you're not worried about all the what ifs, and you're not thinking about the mistakes that you made, but the here and the now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quick way you can do that. You can think of 3 things, or concentrate on 3 things you can see in the moment, 3 things you can hear, and 3 things you can touch. There's
Okay.
another grounding technique using some type of physical stimulation. I've seen people wear a rubber band on their wrist, and they'll flip the rubber band when they
Oh.
start becoming anxious. A quick one to do is just clench your hands and release. Again, focusing on that physical activity and then release. Yeah. So those are things you can do in the moment.
In the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got grounding, and then you mentioned, was it box breathing? Is that what you called
Box
it?
breathing. Mm-hmm.
Box breathing.
Yeah. Drawing that imaginary box.
I really like the image of the box
Mm-hmm.
and doing, so it's 4 seconds
four
in.
seconds
I don't
in.
know about everyone else on the call when you were doing that. I found myself breathing along with you, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Um, I'm reading a book right now called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. And he has a whole chapter on breathing. And gosh, I should have wrote down quotes from the book. He talks about your breath is the one thing that's constant that you'll always have with you. And he talked about just from the time you were born, in every situation, your breath is what you have and what you're in control of. So I think that's just really, really interesting. Um, and anytime you get, like you said, anytime you get stressed, anytime you get angry, your breathing changes. So your breath is what's always constant. Interesting.
Yeah.
So it seems like you said, if we can learn to control our breath, we can kind of we can navigate other situations that are happening in our life and bring us back to, or tap into our parasympathetic nervous system, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I want to be able to make sure that we're getting to some people's questions. I've got some people chiming in here on the chat, so I'm going to read some of these to you because I'm not sure if you're able to also see them. Someone here, I'm sorry, weird. I have not been a good person watching the chat, but earlier in our talk, someone said, as a veteran with severe PTSD, being a volunteer firefighter and EMT can be healing because of the ability to serve again. It can also sometimes do the opposite. It is a daily balance.
Yeah.
Um, it is a balance. Thank you for sharing that comment. Someone chimed in and said, "How do we address getting a handle on burnout and stressors?" Which I think we've covered a little bit here. Someone chimed in and said, "I love Jay Shetty." Oh, someone said, "I just received the book." That is so funny. Someone said, "I do the breathing. I inhale through my nose and count to 4, and then breathe out through my mouth, counting down from 4 to 1. So going back to that box breathing. Someone also commented and said, I think they're referring to Jay Shetty, that his podcasts are amazing. And someone also said, "I do the breathing and it does help."
Yeah.
I love that.
There's if you ever do any type of like yoga or Tai Chi, there's that's not only stretching, but it's breathing. It's tying the breath into the physical activity. And again, just slowing all your systems down so you can regulate your systems better. A lot of
Yeah.
power in that.
Yeah. Tai Chi is beautiful. What a beautiful form of movement. Okay, let's see. We have one more comment here. This person said, one thing that has helped me is that my partner and I have dedicated dinner time each night, every night. So it is one part of the day to look forward to and help balance the day and unwind together. I love that. I think that's really, really great. Um, I know a challenge for my husband and I is when we come home, which Ella, I told you this before other people hopped on, that I feel like my husband brings a lot of positivity to our relationship and he's a very positive person to the point sometimes I'm like, don't be so positive, go away right now. I'm just kidding. But I think something that's hard, especially if you have two partners that work in healthcare, it's hard to come together and not talk about work. And we have some folks here in the healthcare system that they work together. So I think sometimes it's really hard to go home and be able to leave work behind, but that's something we need to work on setting boundaries for.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's see. I want to get some of these questions in here. Um, Someone submitted this question prior. They said, when it comes to difficult people or situations, it feels like those small everyday interactions can really add up over time. Do you have any hacks or advice for handling those moments in a way that doesn't slowly lead to burnout? So this
Yeah.
is when dealing with difficult people or situations.
Mhm. Yeah. But if you work in healthcare, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But being able to navigate the situations is the goal, not avoiding those situations, because that's not realistic. So several things you can do. Again, deep breathing during those situations, so you're not breathing shallow and rapid, and then your heart rate starts, and then your hands start, and you have triggered your sympathetic nervous system into fight or flight, and that can be an emotional place to be. Another thing I would say is think about responding, not reacting. And I have to preaching to the choir on this one. But when you respond, that's intentional. Give yourself a moment to think, how am I going to handle the situation? When you react, that's more of an emotional response, and that's usually where trouble starts. So respond to a situation, not react to a situation. Um, Setting clear boundaries again can help in these difficult conversations with difficult people.
Mhm.
Using I statements can help. So instead of being on the attack, somebody's chronically 15 minutes late for the shift every single day, you're always on time. They come in and you're going to let them have it this time, so they walk through the door and you're always late and you're so inconsiderate. So
Mhm.
rephrase it. I think that you need to be 15 minutes early for your shift so you can get report and you can leave on time, because I am 15 minutes early for my shift so I can get report and you can leave on time. You said the
Yeah.
same thing, but you did it in a non-confrontational way.
Yeah.
Um, Picking your battles. Not every battle, not every hill is worth dying on. You
Mhm.
don't have to fight every battle. And sometimes the best strategy is to disengage and walk away.
Yeah.
This is something we just talked about, but realizing what is in your circle of control and what is not. Other
Mhm.
people are not. You are. And
Mhm.
when you focus in on your reactions and what you can control, it's just a lot better situation for both of you. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, One I do want to talk a little bit about, because this is the very powerful too, is perception, because perception shapes our reality. There's a quote by Charles Swindoll that says that life is only 10% of what happens to us, and it's 90% how we react to it.
Mhm.
So, for instance, if someone is just, they are letting you have it for no apparent reason, instead of becoming angry, maybe you can tell yourself, they are having a difficult day, they're having a lot of stressors themselves, and it may not even be accurate and it may not even be true. But if it changes your perception of a difficult interaction and helps you not match their energy, then you come out the winner.
Yeah. You do. That's a
Yeah.
powerful quote. And I know we talked about it a little bit before too, before other people hopped on, but it's interesting. Like it's just interesting. Um, we're running short on time. Can you believe it? Time has flown.
No, I
I
cannot.
can't believe it. And I'm so sorry. I like sent you all these thoughts ahead of time, and then I've been like all over the place and jumping around to different questions. But there's so much to talk about. I think this is a
There's a
huge
lot
topic.
in this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I say one more thing
of course.
about like dealing with difficult people? Is focusing on the positives and focusing on gratitude
Mhm.
instead of always the negative. And like you said, why does everything bad happen to me? And the world's against me. And you're always looking for the negative. If you always look for the negative, you will find it. I
Yeah,
guarantee it. But there are always positives. And again, it's what your mind chooses to focus on is what is inside of you. Yeah,
yeah,
and you have that power.
yeah. Something that going back to Jay Shetty's book, he talks about when he was um studying to become a monk, one of the things that he did was every time he had a negative thought, he counteracted it with, I think it was 10 positive thoughts. For you Jay Shetty lovers, if you're on here and you've read the book, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I've tried to when correcting my negative thinking because it is so easy to get in that pattern of
Very
negative
easy.
thinking. It is so easy. And for those of you who weren't on here earlier and Ella and I were talking, we were talking about how it's so easy to victimize situations and saying like the world is out to get me or this is happening to me. Oh my gosh. Um but that's something I have tried to do is counteract my negative thought with a positive thought. So, which is sometimes hard. I'm telling you, it's a hard thing, especially if your brain is patterned to go one way and not the
Yes.
other.
Yep.
Um, but I do think that goes a long way. Positive thinking goes a long way. Okay, Ella, before we end, we are at time at this point, but for someone who is sitting here listening on this call and they're like, oh my gosh, this just feels like another thing that I have to fix. It's another thing that I don't have the time for, I don't have the energy for, I don't have the capacity for. What would you say to them and what do you want them to know?
Yeah. I think it's very important to frame this as self-care. It's not punishment.
Mhm,
You are just reprioritizing your activities in a healthy way. Yeah.
mhm,
It's not just one more thing you have to do. It's rethinking how you do things. And
mhm.
there are so many things you can do to get started. And it doesn't have to be anything big. Just one little change up in your day can that momentum can get you unstuck and you can move forward in ways that you might not have even expected. Um,
Yeah.
but there are so many things that you can do. And I'll mention some of these because these are things I tell my people that I see. Medicine has a role, but pills can't fix everything. And if you don't do the work, you're only going to get so far if you're taking medication. Um, I think that's important because I mean, if there were some magic pill out there, we would all be taking it, but it just doesn't work that way. So paying attention to your diet, what you put in your system is what your system has to work off of. And I tell my people, um, try to get rid of processed things and a lot of sugar and a lot of artificial things. A whole food diet is really best for you mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Um, Quality sleep. I have this conversation probably 15 times a day. How's your sleep? Oh, it's terrible. You got to work on your sleep. A sleep schedule. You get up at the same time, you go to bed at the same time. You turn your phone off at night. You're not doom scrolling through your phone. But you have to prioritize your sleep. You have to prioritize activities and hobbies that aren't related to your job. You need downtime and things that are not the job because you can't be that 24 hours a day. Um, Giving back, um, things you do for other people, like our firefighter said, that can be very therapeutic. But giving back to others can help you offset the stress that you have. Um,
Yeah.
Meaningful relationships and building connection with other people, very important for stress relievers. Um, and I'll tell you another thing that I think that stress is like a set of scales. So
Mhm.
when your stress side gets too heavy, if you can take some weight off your stress side, you'll probably be able to balance it out. But if you can't, and a lot of us can't, then you have to attend to this side. And this is self care. And if you feel yourself weighing too heavy on the stress side, then you need to increase your self care. Self
Yeah.
care is not selfish, it is essential for your well being. And I'll
Mhm.
say this is probably the last thing I would say is that well being is not the absence of stress, it is the ability to navigate through it.
Mhm. And resilience.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, Ella, thank you so much. I hope
It's my
everyone
pleasure.
else, I hope people learned something new, but I also hope that there were some reminders in there. I encourage everyone, we have a little bit of time before 1 o'clock. I encourage everyone to maybe try one of Ella's grounding techniques or the box breathing technique, or go make yourself a hot cup of tea. This was my time to breathe and be with Ella. Um, I really appreciate you doing this today. This was wonderful. Someone said, when is the next talk with Ella?
Oh wow.
We might have
That
to do a
stresses
part
me
two.
out. I don't know.
Um,
No, I
so
appreciate
many
the
people have
opportunity.
said thank you so much. I did also want to comment here. We had someone that commented back, Ella, when you were sharing about reactions to different conversations. Someone said that they've had a therapist share the idea that you don't have to participate in every argument you're invited to. And I think Mel
Oh,
Robbins has a similar
good.
quote to that as well. You don't have to participate in every conversation. A lot of people are saying thank you. It was truly a blessing. Great job. This was great information. So thank you everyone for attending. Next month, we're actually going to be talking about hormone replacement therapy and perimenopause with Dr. Casey Stilley. So I hope to have you back.